Hello everyone, this is Prajna and welcome back to another Division 2 video. So if you're looking for a great solo Dark Zone PvP build for the Division 2, here are two high damage solo PvP builds for you to use. These two builds are extremely effective in PvP encounters and also work great in conflict mode. The first build I will be showing you guys is an SMG build, great for players who have a run and gun playstyle. The second is an assault rifle build, fantastic for both mid to long range fights. And both of these builds have a great deal of survivability as well as damage, making them a great option for solo players. So let's get right into it. Starting off with this high damage SMG build, having 2 million armor and hitting like Mike Tyson in his prime, this build is a force to reckon with. At first glance, many players wouldn't expect this build to deal out such an insane amount of damage since it's an all blue core attribute build with 2 million armor, but the damage output is amazing. So there are a few contributing factors to this build's overall damage output, one of which is the catharsis mask. This exotic mask is a must-have and will not only give you a damage buff, but it will also serve as your personal healer. This is all thanks to the talent Vicious Cycle. So when you take damage, you will get 1% weapon damage for each time you are hit. This caps at 30, giving you 30% weapon damage, which is insane. However, taking damage at full stacks will reset that damage bonus and drop a healing cloud for you, restoring 5% of your max armor for 10 seconds. And the higher the meter, the more damage bonus you will have. And there goes the healing cloud, right there. So having that meter under the catharsis mask is quite helpful when fighting. Now, if you don't have the catharsis mask, it's actually quite easy to get. It's in the general loot pool, so running countdown on heroic with masks selected as targeted loot would be your best bet. So another contributing factor to this build's high damage output is the Picaro's holster. This named holster comes with 15% weapon damage, which stacks up with the weapon damage received from the catharsis mask. Not to mention the high critical hit damage. Just take a look at the stats of the Ouroboros on this build. 60% critical hit chance and a whopping 180 critical hit damage. Crazy, right? Well, it gets better because this build is known for its great balance of both damage and survivability. Before I get into the breakdown of the build, I want to address a possible concern for newer players, or even players with low expertise. So, although my expertise is leveled up pretty high with this build, it will still perform well regardless of expertise. So with that being said, let me show you some conflict gameplay, and for those of you who don't know, conflict actually disables expertise completely for a more balanced and fair play. Having two pieces of the Sokolov brand set will give you not only 10% SMG damage, but you will also be getting 15% critical hit damage. The backpack that I have equipped is the named Walker Harris backpack Matador. This bag comes with the talent Perfect Adrenaline Rush. This will grant you bonus armor whenever you are within close proximity of an enemy. Ideal for solo players, this bonus armor also stacks up to 3 times, which is really helpful with survivability and fighting multiple players at once. So as you can see, the build is still performing great in conflict mode. Now let's have a closer look at this build. For the specialization, Firewall works the best with this build setup, further contributing to the overall survivability. This is all thanks to the extracellular matrix talent that comes with Firewall. This talent will recover 200% of your armor and health over a period of 10 seconds. Here's a pro tip. Make sure to use an armor kit before your health gets any lower than 50%. That way, after you use an armor kit, you will have a steady amount of heals, which will give you the edge you need when fighting multiple players at once. So for the primary weapon, I'm using the Ouroboros exotic SMG. This gun is an absolute monster. Like, having it equipped is like using a score streak from Call of Duty, and even at 0 expertise, this gun still melts. The talent on this weapon is also extremely nice. Rule them all. When you have a status effect applied to you with this gun out, 50% of the ammo in the next mag will apply the same status effect to any target. So, in other words, say you get foamed while having this gun equipped. Well, half of the bullets in your next magazine after reloading will be imbued with foam. Pretty cool, right? Anyway, for the catharsis mask, the talent Vicious Cycle will give you a nice damage buff as I stated earlier, but here is the full spec of the talent. Taking damage builds stacks to a cap of 30. Each stack grants 1% weapon damage. Taking damage at max stacks triggers a purge, removing all stacks and status effects applied to your agent. Not only that, the mask will drop a healing cloud which restores 5% of max armor for 10 seconds to you and all allies in the cloud. If you don't have this mask, a good alternative will be the Walker Harris mask, and that's because you will be getting not only 5% weapon damage, but 5% damage to armor as well since we have the Matador bag. Oh, and another thing to note before I forget is that the Matador bag is Dark Zone exclusive. This means you can only attain it within the Dark Zone or through Dark Zone proficiency caches. But don't worry too much if you don't have this bag because all you really need is the Adrenaline Rush talent, since this is one of the major factors to this build's overall survivability. The next piece up is the Sokolov vest. This piece comes with Unbreakable, which is an awesome talent. When your armor is depleted, repair 95% of your armor. However, in PvP, this repair is reduced to about 50%, which is still very viable in PvP and may help you win a lot more gunfights. For the gloves, I have equipped a second piece of the Sokolov Concern brand set. And having 2 pieces will give you 10% SMG damage as well as 15% critical hit damage. For the knee pads, 1 piece of Grupo Sombra for that sweet and spicy 15% critical hit damage. Last, but most certainly not least, is the Picaro's holster. This named holster comes with 15% weapon damage with 12% critical hit damage rolled. Okay guys, let's take a look at the stats. 60% critical hit chance and 180% critical hit damage on the Ouroboros, with 40% critical hit chance and 170 critical hit damage on the Shield Splinterer. I like to use the Defender drone since it works out really well in PvP, and the decoy as my second skill. However, feel free to use whatever suits your playstyle. Now, this second build is very similar to the previous one. However, since this is an AR build, some pieces have been swapped out. So I swapped out the Sokolov vest with the Fenris Group AB vest. Having 1 piece of the Fenris brand set gives 10% assault rifle damage, and having the Coyote mask equipped works out great since it will give you critical hit chance and damage bonuses, which will increase the further you are from an enemy. Like in this clip right here, this is more long range and you can see just how high the critical damage numbers are. Although this build lacks in survivability compared to the previous one, you will still find it very viable in PvP mid to long range fights. Having the Contractor's gloves, Picaro's holster, and Fox's prayer knee pads all contribute to the insane damage that this build deals out. So if you're an AR lover like me, this build will do you justice. Let's dive into the specs. Firewall is a great specialization for this build. Using a Firewall armor kit will give you a steady amount of armor regeneration over time. For the primary weapon, I'm using the St. Elmo's engine. This exotic assault rifle is a must-have. It feels really nice firing and has amazing accuracy and stability. Not only that, the mag size is insane, 70 rounds in a mag. The talent on this gun is called Actum Est. Shooting an enemy will give you 1 stack. Upon reaching 100 stacks, half of your next magazine will be filled with shock ammo. The Coyote mask goes great with this build since most of the gunfights will be mid to long range. The Talent Pack Instincts will give you a nice critical hit chance and damage bonus the further you are away from a target. The Picaro's holster, which gives 15% weapon damage. The Contractor's gloves that come with 8% damage to armor, which is a nice attribute to stack damage with. And the Fox's prayer knee pads will further increase damage with the 8% damage to target out of cover attribute. And for the backpack, I'm using the Walker Harris bag with the Talent Vigilance. Vigilance will increase your total weapon damage by 25%. Taking damage disables this buff for 4 seconds. Also, by having 1 piece of this brand set, I get 5% weapon damage. One thing to note is that although you lose the buff from Vigilance when you're hit, it's still a great talent since this is a mid to long range build, and having that extra 25% damage can still be helpful, especially if you get the drop on a player before they can react. For the Fenris vest, having 1 piece will give 10% assault rifle damage, and the Unbreakable talent will aid in survivability. So let's look at the stats. 46.7% critical hit chance and 171.3% critical hit damage. Now, critical hit chance caps at 60%, and since I'm using the Coyote mask, which will give critical hit chance and damage bonuses, there is no need to bring my critical hit chance any higher than this. For the secondary weapon, you can use whatever you like. And for the skills, the Defender drone works great, but I encourage you to use whatever fits your playstyle. So, That'll do it for this video, guys. If you made it to the end, you are a real trooper and an amazing person. In this crazy world we live in, many people need to hear this. But anyway, this is Prajna. Thank you so much for watching. And like always, if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section. Keep it cool, keep it classy. Peace out, and see you in the next video.